I know I'm supposed to let this thing run a bit for 10 seconds, but this is a quick video today because I'm mad busy. But I want to read you something from Daniel Defoe's The Journal of the Plague Year. And this is Defoe's, the English sort of commentator and writer, talk, talking about the Private Journal of London during the plague year of 1666 and what went on. And reading this, and, of course, trying to parallel it with today. And I picked this copy yesterday, and it's an antiquarian copy, and it's from 1884, and I got it for a bargain price at a bookstall, and it's probably worth quite a lot of money. Well, more than the €5 or €7 I paid for it, and so it's very interesting, this. And the first thing I see when I pick it up is this. The first thing is the list of other books from the publishers, and it says Sheridan's Plays. So that was kind of like an interesting thing. But in the book, I'm looking for parallels between today and now with the Rona and everything like that. And Defoe talks about the concept of people being shut in, locked behind their houses. And this was happening in London. People were told to stay at home, and they had like watchers on the streets who would try and shunt people back into their houses, and the whole thing of locking them up. Now, Defoe has a very interesting attitude towards this. Is that what it's no, it's obvious that by keeping people locked up, you are stopping the spread of the infection. But the very act of locking people up is a kind of a sabotage of your own healthcare things, because what happens is it creates anxiety, and that anxiety is actually more dangerous than the plague itself. Excuse me. And this is from, and he says here, after talking about people who'd wandered out, this is one of the reasons why I believed then, and do still believe, that shutting up houses thus by force and restraining, or rather imprisoning people in their own houses, as I said above, was of little or no service in the whole. Nay, I am of the opinion it was rather hurtful, having forced those desperate people to wander abroad with plague upon them, who would otherwise have died quietly in their beds. Now that's what Defoe said. These people were infected with the sickness, and being forced at home, shut in, generates anxieties. Now, ties in big time with the whole control structure, the whole control grid thing. All right. Anxiety is the worst form of fear, because it's very much about the fear of the unknown. And you say you have primal fears and you have unknown fears. I was talking to somebody about this today. You're in the ocean and you see the fin of a great white shark coming towards you. You know that thing can eat you, so you try to avoid it. That is a primal fear of survival. Okay, that's a healthy fear. Anxiety is the worst kind of fear, because you're afraid of something you can't put your finger on. And anxiety builds at times of insecurity and at times of isolation. And this is what Defoe, 500 years ago, 400 years ago, uh, recognized, was that these people during the plague were locked up in their houses in London, and the anxiety began to build up, and they had plague, and this anxiety made them wander. It made them leave the house, because the house was a terrifying place, and they actually spread it by by you know by the anxiety. Where if they had been left alone, they would have either got better or died in their homes of the plague, rather than being forcefully shut in. The forcefully shut in thing created the anxieties. The anxiety made the plague worse. Now, the establishment, the globalists, the secret unknowns, have a vested interest in keeping us constantly in a state of anxiety. And you hear New Age people talk a lot about this, low vibration and all this stuff. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of truth to that. Anxiety is based upon a fear of the unknown, but you can only control a person with the fear of the unknown for so long. Therefore, you have to create visible symbols of fear. In this case, nowadays, they make people wear masks. They wear make people when you see someone wearing a mask, you then have a visible symbol of the anxiety that you're suffering. But that's not really why you're sick. You have the anxiety because of the body counts on the 6 o'clock news and things like this. And they're deliberately torturing these people. They're saying to them, you have to stay at home, you have to have lockdowns, you have to maintain social distancing, because otherwise you'll spread the plague. And these people become terrified and they wander. And this is, I don't want to tell you that abusive parents who do things like leave little kids alone when they go to the pub, that the when the parents go to the pub and they don't have a babysitter, like the McCanns, it's very common actually, and they've done, they won't admit a lot of people, they do. And they might have an 8 or 9 year old, and they say, he's old enough to, or she's old enough to look after the rest of the kids, and we're only going to be gone for a few hours. They'll be safe. You'll often find that that oldest kid who's responsible for the younger kid panics and has anxiety because they start thinking their parents are never going to come back. And what they do is they might dress or half dress the kids in a state of terror and go around the pubs looking for their parents until they show up at a pub and the kids are half dressed, and the parent we'll go frightened, we didn't know you were going to come back, and the parents are angry at the kids and making embarrassed of them when that's what they're supposed to do, or else they're stupid asshole parents who think it's funny. But that's what goes on. And that's why that's what happened with that Madeleine McCann. She didn't know if her mother and father were coming back, so she wandered and had an accident, and something happened to her. And this is what we're doing to us with being locked up and being housebound and locked down. The anxieties build, the terrors build, and then people start walking out thinking they've been left alone. And then they do things they wouldn't do, like they drink large amounts of alcohol. But they have to have the visible symbol of terror. The visible symbol of terror is the mask and the social distancing. The reason why all the warning signs, I don't know what in your country, but the reason why they're all yellow and orange is because they're the colour of piss. You piss yourself when you're afraid. You piss yourself with fear. So when you see a COVID warning sign with a picture of it, like an NPC face with a mask on it, and the whole thing is in yellow and black, well, black is the unknown, yellow the fear of the dark, and yellow is the colour of piss. You piss yourself metaphorically on the inside. And I've been getting some education from reading this about today and humanity. And I can tell you something, the first thing that happened as soon as this happened in 1660s in England and in today with the Rona is the same opportunists come along. It's an opportunity for the pathological to control people. It's an opportunity for them, and they absolutely love it, and they become sexually addicted to it, to actually controlling people and locking them down and things like that. So this is all primal fears that have been taken from us and replaced with anxieties, okay? And when you see a mask, when someone in a state of anxiety over all this, not us in the tribe, I'm talking about the average person, they in order for them to completely flip out, half dress themselves and go look for their parents down the pub or wander like back then, is they give them the mask to create a facsimile of a clear and present danger. Sanguine gnosis.